Hello, everyone, and welcome to this session on hip joint. Hip joint, as all of us know, is a ball and socket type of joint, and that is ball and socket type of joint of synovial vertex. And that is the first thing you have to write about any joint, ball and socket type of a joint of synovial vertex. If you have time in your exam and if you want to write something about the introduction, then you can say that yes, it is similar to shoulder joint, but the mobility, the mobility is compromised. Mobility is compromised for stability. Okay, so it is a ball and type of a ball and socket type of a joint of synovial vertex. Then what are the articulating surfaces? The articulating surfaces, whenever we write for the hip joint, we have to say that superomedial means superiorly and medially there is acetabulum. Superiorly and medially there is acetabulum of the hip bone. Acetabulum, okay, and inferiorly and laterally, inferiorly and laterally there is the head of the femur. Now going little into details of what is there in the articulating surfaces superiorly and medially, the acetabulum. Now, how is the acetabulum? It's not that the entire acetabulum will form the articulating surface. It's the lunate surface of the acetabulum. It's the lunate surface of the acetabulum which will be forming the articulating surface. So that this is the lunate surface. Lunate surface. Okay. And then there is a notch. There is an acetabular notch. And this acetabular notch is bridged by transverse acetabular ligament. Transverse acetabular ligament. So this they also contribute to the formation of the articulating surface. Okay, so acetabulum is a horseshoe shape. It's a horseshoe shape, and there is a notch, and then there is this acetabular fossa. So the fossa doesn't contribute so much. It's the lunate surface which is covered by the articulating by the articular cartilage. Okay? And uh, the head of the femur is on the lower aspect. The head of the femur, which is round, is on the lower aspect. Now after this, we have to, like we said, that this is a joint where mobility is compromised for stability. And what are the factors which make it stable? That the depth of the acetabulum is more. The acetabular depth is more hmm, compared to the glenoid cavity. Then what is the other factor? That there is acetabular labrum. Acetabular labrum. Okay, which like there was a glenoidal labrum in the shoulder joint, there is acetabular labrum. Then there are strong ligaments. Like the iliofemoral ligament is the strongest ligament. Okay, so there are strong ligaments, and these all structures, even the obliquity of the neck of the femur, the length of the neck of the femur, all these factors make this joint stable. So deep uh, acetabulum, and then there is acetabular labrum around it. Okay, and then there are strong ligaments. So all of this makes hip joints a very, very table kind of a joint. Now let us study about the capsule and ligaments. The capsule and ligament. Whenever we are writing the capsule and ligaments of the hip joint, we have to remember two things. That's one capsule plus three ligaments. Now, why I have written 3 plus 3 ligaments? One is capsule and ligaments are 3 plus 3. The first set of 3 comes from the 3 parts of the hip bone. Okay, so there will be uh, iliofemoral, then there will be ischiofemoral, iliofemoral, ischiofemoral, and pubofemoral. Iliofemoral, ischiofemoral, and pubofemoral. Okay. Iliofemoral, ischiofemoral, and pubofemoral. So this is one set of 3. Then what is the other set of 3? Acetabular labrum. Okay, acetabular labrum. Then the transverse acetabular ligament, and the last thing is the ligament of head of femur. Ligament of head of femur. So 1 plus 3 plus 3. 3 coming from the 3 bones, iliofemoral, ischiofemoral, and uh, iliofemoral, ischiofemoral, and pubofemoral. 3 others are acetabular labrum, transverse acetabular ligament, and ligament of head of femur. Now let's start writing about the capsule first. Now the capsule of the hip joint, it will be attached to superiorly to the margins of the acetabulum, the transverse acetabular ligament, also to the transverse acetabular ligament. Basically, around this will be the acetabular labrum running like this. So the capsule will be attached to the acetabular labrum and the transverse acetabular ligament. It will be attached to the acetabular labrum and even to the transverse acetabular ligament. To the transverse and inferior. So that is how the capsule attachment is there. Now inferiorly it is attached. So superiorly it is attached to the acetabulum. Now the inferior, this is the superior attachment. Now the inferior attachment of the capsule is that it is attached to the intertrochanteric line anterior. Intertrochanteric line anteriorly attached to intertrochanteric line, and posteriorly it is attached. It is 1 centimeter medial. It is 1 centimeter medial to intertrochanteric crest. Intertrochanteric crest. 1 centimeter medial to the intertrochanteric crest. There are 2 types of fibers which are seen in the uh, capsule. Okay, there are 2 types of fibers. 2 types of fibers seen in the capsule. Okay, one are longitudinal fibers. These are also called as retinacular fibers. Retinacular fibers. And 2 are circular fibers. Circular fibers. These circular fibers are, they form what is called as zona orbicularis. Zona orbicularis. So two types of fibers. Again, I repeat, the capsule is attached to the acetabular labrum and to the transverse acetabular ligament superiorly, inferiorly attached to the intertrochanteric line on the femur anteriorly and posteriorly 1 centimeter medial to the intertrochanteric crest. And there are two types of fiber, longitudinal, okay, which are retinacular fibers, and circular, which are called as zona orbicularis. Now coming to the ligaments. Okay, so we have written about capsule. Now we are talking about ligaments. So capsule. So now I'm writing here 2 because 2, 3, 5, the first set, 2, 3, 4, the first set of ligaments will be from the 3 parts of the hip bone. And the first of amongst this is iliofemoral ligament. And the name of this ligament is also called as ligament of Bigelow. Ligament of Bigelow's. Now this ligament is the strongest ligament in the body. Ligament of Bigelow is the strongest ligament in the body. This is attached, okay, it is in an inverted Y shape. Okay, inverted Y shape. It is attached to anterior inferior iliac spine. Anterior inferior iliac spine. Anterior inferior iliac spine. And from there, it goes in an inverted Y-shaped manner from the anterior inferior iliac spine, and it is attached to the intertrochanteric line. Intertrochanteric line. Anterior inferior iliac spine to intertrochanteric line. From there, it goes to the intertrochanteric line. Now let us talk about, and this is the strongest ligament of the body, and this prevents the trunk from falling backwards. Prevents the trunk from falling backwards. Pubofemoral ligament is the next. Pubofemoral ligament is, it starts from the iliopubic eminence. Okay, also from the obturator crest, obturator membrane, but mainly iliopubic eminence, and it merges with the lower band. It merges with the lower band of the iliofemoral ligament. Merges with the lower band of iliofemoral. So in short, the iliofemoral ligament is like this, and the pubofemoral ligament will come from the top, and it merges like this with the lower band of, so this is iliofemoral and this is pubofemoral. Okay, so it merges with the lower band of the iliofemoral ligament. Now the next ligament is ischiofemoral. This ischiofemoral ligament is the weakest. Is the weakest in the amongst the knee, okay, amongst the knee joint ligament, and this is on the posterior aspect. So on the posterior aspect, if we see, this is the head, and this is the neck of the femur. So it will come like this. Suppose this is the ischium. It will come from the ischium. It will come from the ischium and go like this. Hmm. The fibers are twisted, and basically it joins the zona orbicularis. Basically, it joins the zona orbicularis. Okay. So these fibers of the ischiofemoral ligament, they run from ischium and then they are attached to the ureter. Now, after finishing the three ligaments which arise from the three parts of the hip bone, let us talk about the other three ligaments. So now we are talking about 5, 6, and 7. So on number 5, the ligament on number 5 is the ligament of head of femur. This ligament of head of femur is also called as ligamentum teres. Ligamentum teres. If you see this section of the acetabulum, and this is the transverse acetabular notch, and inside here is the head of the femur. So this ligament of the head of the femur runs like this. Its fibers, they run like this. Okay. So the fibers of the ligament of the head of the femur are attached to the head of the femur. They are attached to the head of the femur, and then they are attached from there to the transverse acetabular ligament. Then number 6 is acetabular labrum. Number 6 is acetabular labrum. Acetabular labrum is made up of fibrocartilage. All glenoidal labrum, acetabular labrum, they are all made up of fibrocartilage. And then they are attached to the rim. They are attached to the rim of the margins of the acetabulum. The main function of this is to narrow the mouth of acetabulum and holding the head of the femur tight. Okay, holding the femoral head tight. The seventh ligament is the transverse ligament of acetabulum. This ligament just bridges the acetabular notch. It bridges the acetabular. Now, why this notch is there? Because this notch basically is there so that the blood vessels, the blood vessels, so that the blood vessels can pass. Okay, the blood vessels will be passing below the vessel. So this notch converts the this ligament converts this notch into a foramen. Okay. The next important point regarding the hip joint is the relations. Normally not asked as a heading in the exam, but still, if we ask, and also we should be knowing that main relations I am just writing that anteriorly will be rectus femoris straight head, the straight head of rectus femoris. Anteriorly will be the straight head of rectus femoris muscle, also iliopsoas muscle. What are the posterior relations? The posterior will be all those short lateral rotators, okay? Obturator internus, the two gamellae, quadratus femoris, gluteus maximus muscle, piriformis. These all will be posterior. Superiorly will be again rectus femoris, but the reflected head of rectus femoris. And inferiorly will be the obturator in obturator externus and pectinis. Obturator externus and pectinis. Now let's start writing the blood supply of the hip joint. The hip joint is supplied mainly by these five. One, obturator artery. Obturator artery. Then two, circumflex artery. The medial circumflex femoral and the lateral circumflex femoral. The two circumflex femoral arteries, medial and lateral. And the two gluteal arteries, superior and inferior gluteal. Most of the arteries, they pass along the retinacular fibers. Retinacular fibers are the straight fibers of the hip joint capsule. Retinacular fibers, these are called as retinacular arteries. Okay. And so basically what they do is they form a circle. These arteries, they form a circle around the capsular attachment, and then they supply the joint. A small part of the head near the fovea capitis is supplied by the acetabular branches of obturator. So all these circumflex arteries will form a circle, arterial circle, and through that the retinacular branches will go like this and supply the hip. But inside, so the neck is going like this, and the head of the femur, but it will receive some branches from the obturator artery. And here the medial and lateral circumflex femoral arteries, they are forming the arterial circle. So from this circle, the branches are around the neck. So the hip bone is somewhat like this, and okay, and the arterial circle formed by the medial and lateral circumflex arteries is like this, and from where the branches go and they supply the hip joint. Okay, now the nerve supply. If you know, if you want to write the nerve supply of the hip joint, very easy to remember, because you have to just remember all the nerves of major nerves, of course, of the lower limb. And so it will be, the nerve supply will be by femoral nerve, one femoral nerve via nerve to rectus femoris, via nerve to rectus femoris. Obturator nerve via its anterior branch. Obturator nerve via its anterior branch. Then nerve to quadratus femoris. There will be accessory obturator nerve also. Obturator nerve and accessory obturator nerve. Nerve to quadratus femoris. And superior gluteal nerve. Superior gluteal nerve. Now the next point is the movements of the joint. Movements and muscles producing the movements. Okay. So whenever we are writing any movement and the muscles producing this movement, this is how we write it. So we write flexion. So write the axis. Axis of flexion is transverse. Then write the range. The range of the flexion is limited by touching of the thigh to chest wall. When the thigh touches the chest wall, that's the range. So good range of flexion. Muscle axis, range, and muscle. So which are the muscles producing flexion? Psoas major and iliacs. Of course, there will be pectineus, rectus femoris, sartorius also. And let us go to the next action, extension. Okay, so next movement is extension. Axis transverse. Axis will be transverse. The range of extension is only 15 degrees. Actually, we see gymnasts taking the joint upwards, but it is more of doing due to tilting of the pelvis. So which are the muscles which cause extension? Mainly gluteus maximus and hamstrings. Then the next movement, adduction. The adduction, the range is limited by contact with the uh, opposite limb, but it axis of abduction and adduction is anteroposterior. The range when it comes in contact with opposite limb. The muscles producing adduction is adductor longus, brevis, magnus. But apart from that, there is pectineus and gracilis also. Pectineus and gracilis also. Now going to the next action, that is abduction. Action number 4. Axis antero-posterior. Range of abduction 50 degrees. Muscles producing abduction, muscles producing abduction, gluteus medius, minimus. These are the muscles producing abduction. And tensor fascia lata, and sartorius. Going to the fifth action. The fifth action is medial rotation. Now medial rotation, the axis will be vertical. Axis of medial rotation is vertical. What is the range for the medial rotation? It is 25 degrees. 25 degrees. What are the muscles producing medial rotation at the hip joint? The tensor fascia lata and the anterior fibers of gluteus medius and minimus. lateral rotation. What is the axis? Axis is again vertical. What is the range? The range of lateral rotation is 60 degrees. What are the muscles producing this? The two obturator muscles, obturator internus and externus, the two gamellae and quadratus. Apart from this, the lateral rotation is also produced by piriformis, gluteus maximus, and sartorius. So sartorius is causing abduction and lateral rotation and also helping in flexion. The seventh action is circumduction. It is a combination of all the previous actions. It is a combination of all the previous actions. Now coming to the last component of the hip joint, and that is the applied anatomy. The first thing you can write in applied anatomy is CDH, congenital dislocation of hip joint is very common. Okay, the head of the femur will slip and it will go in the gluteal surface. So some people, and in this case, basically the head of the femur slips to the gluteal surface because the acetabulum is not so firm or it is too small, not deep or deficient. There is deficiency in the acetabulum. There is deficiency in acetabulum. And the Trendelenburg's test, the Trendelenburg test is positive. The next applied anatomy here you can write is the Perthes disease. Perthes disease. Okay. Here basically what happens is flattening of the head of femur. The flattening of the femoral head. So you can see the joint space has reduced. So that is the second applied anatomy. Then the fractures. Fracture. This is how we write fractures, but in the exam you should not make. You should write the word fracture. Okay. So many fractures happen around the hip joint. Most common is fracture of neck of femur. Once in old people with osteoporosis. Okay. So that time many times this need a operative correction, and a rod has to be fixed or a screw has to be fixed. Then there can be a trochanteric fracture, intertrochanteric fracture. Intertrochanteric fracture. So these fractures are very, very common. Then some of the radiographic things which you should know, that Nelaton's line. Now, these are some of the things which you have to remember till your final exam. This Nelaton line, it passes from an anterior superior iliac spine to the ischial tuberosity. Okay, ischial tuberosity. And it, as it passes from anterior superior iliac spine to the ischial tuberosity, it passes through the highest point of greater trochanter. Okay, so whenever there is a fracture, the greater trochanter, it is, so this AS, greater trochanter and ischial tuberosity. That means in case of fracture, the greater trochanter will not lie in the Nelaton's line. Will not lie in the Nelaton's line. It will be that it will be displaced upwards. Most of the times it is displaced upwards. So a line passing from anterior superior iliac spine to ischial tuberosity, it will pass through greater trochanter, and if greater trochanter goes above, that means that looks like a fracture. Then the Shenton's line. Hmm. What is this Shenton's line? Now, Shenton line is a curve which is formed by the upper border of obturator foramen and lower border of neck of the femur. So, the obturator foramen curve continues with that. This is the obturator foramen, and this curve continues down with that of the neck of the femur. So, this is obturator foramen here, and this is neck of femur here. Hmm. So, in X-ray, you see, if you see the curve, the femur head, it will go up again. But this curve is continuous of the obturator foramen with the femoral neck. So if this curve is broken, that means there is a fracture. Okay. Then there is something called as shoemaker's line. Now, what is shoemaker's line? So here we have to join the tip of greater trochanter to anterior superior iliac spine. Okay, and when we prolong this line, it will pass through the umbilicus. It will pass through the umbilicus. But whenever there is a fracture, in case of a fracture, this will pass below the umbilicus. So shoemaker's line passes from greater trochanter. It's a line drawn from the tip of the greater trochanter to anterior superior iliac. In case of a fracture, it will pass below the umbilicus. Okay. Nelaton's line passes from anterior superior iliac spine to ischial tuberosity through greater trochanter. In case of fracture, the greater trochanter shifts upwards. Shenton's line is the lower border of the obturator foramen, continues with the neck of the femur. In case of fracture, it is distal. Shoemaker's line from tip of greater trochanter to anterior superior iliac spine. You draw a line, okay, and this will pass through umbilic. If it passes below the umbilic, then it's a fracture. And now the uh, last among all this line is the uh, Bryant's triangle. Now, what is this triangle? Here, patient is lying supine. Patient is lying supine, and we draw three lines. We draw three lines. Okay, three lines are to be drawn. The first line is drawn from anterior superior iliac spine vertically downwards to the bed. The second line is drawn from the tip of greater trochanter, greater trochanter to the first line at right angle. And the third line is from anterior superior iliac spine to tip of greater trochanter. Okay, so we draw these three lines. So if the second line, uh, reduces, there is upward displacement of greater trochanter. And the third line will determine the anteroposterior displacement. So second line, if reduced, the second line, whenever it is reduced, this can this shows upward displacement of greater trochanter. Hmm? Upward displacement of greater trochanter. And the third line is the one which tells us about anteroposterior displacement of greater trochanter. So we draw three lines, one from anterior superior iliac spine to the bed, second from greater trochanter to anterior, this first line, and third joining anterior superior iliac spine to the tip of greater trochanter. Okay, so if the first line reduces, that means there is diminution of the if the second line shows upward displacement of greater trochanter. Okay, so now if this is ASIS, from there we draw a line to the bed, then this is greater trochanter. Okay, so we draw a line like this, and then we draw a line like this, the third line like this. So this is a triangle. Okay, so if this line is reduced, that means the greater trochanter is displaced. Okay, if this line shows the uh, anteroposterior displacement of greater trochanter. And the other applied anatomy, if you want to add to this, you can write about that there can be tuberculosis of hip joint, and in any of this hip joint, knee joint, you have to write about hip joint replacement. Hip joint replacement. Okay, so hip joint replacement, where sometimes the acetabulum is replaced, sometimes the head. If there is too much of arthritis, we put a metal head inside the neck like this. If the acetabulum is damaged, we put a metallic cap inside the acetabulum. So that's about the hip joint replacement. Thank you so much for this session, and thanks again for being